Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for coming and for being here with us today. We are so excited to share all of our upcoming books with you all. If you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the Q&A, and we will get started. We are going to kick off with Chronicle.
Hello, everyone. My name is Anastasia Scott, pronouns she, her, and I'm the sales manager for schools and libraries at Chronicle Books. So I always think the best way to kick these off is to just immediately make you hungry. So let's start with cookbooks. First up, from Abra Behrens, whose popular culinary reference books Roughage and Grist addressed vegetables and grains, comes Pulp, a practical guide to cooking with fruit. Releasing on April 4th, this beautiful follow-up includes more than 215 recipes and variations for using fruit in sweet and savory recipes of all kinds to highlight seasonality and flavor. Pulp only features fruits that grow in temperate climates, so there are no bananas, passion fruit, or citrus here, but it does include 15 widely accessible fruits across the US, as well as rhubarb, which is technically a vegetable. Next on the cookbook list, we have 100 morning treats with muffins, rolls, biscuits, sweet and savory breakfast spreads, and more. So from the brilliant mind who brought you hit books like 100 Cookies, my personal favorite, and Baking for the Holidays, comes back with 100 Morning Treats, a celebration of the so important breakfast bakes genre. The recipes here are 75% sweet, 25% savory, and includes a chapter dedicated to longer weekend baking projects. The cinnamon bun recipe is Sarah Kiefer's most popular recipe on her blog, and it's so good. I say from personal experience with her earlier cookbooks, these recipes are going to be so delicious that you're going to just repeat them again and again and again. Next, we have Bake Me a Cat by Kim Joy of Great British Bake Off fame. So do we have any cat people on this webinar? How about Great British Baking Show fans? Well, welcome to the cookbook mashup of your dreams, Bake Me a Cat. 50 perfect recipes for edible kitty cakes, cookies, and more. This cookbook showcases the cutest bakes you will ever see, all celebrating our favorite pet. Chronicle, we love cat publishing. With brand new recipes for cakes, cookies, desserts, breads, and more, plus plenty of vegan and gluten-free options. It's the kitchen essential for every kitten cuddler. Tiger buns, meow bao, kitty scones, or a happy birthday cake. Bring joy to your cooking and a smile to every cat owner's face with Bake Me a Cat. Next, we have from cookbooks into music biographies. I give you Mud Ride, a messy trip through the grunge explosion. In the late 80s and early 90s, Steve Turner and his friends, Seattle skate punks, hardcore kids, and assorted misfits, started forming bands in each other's basements and accidentally created a unique sound that spread far beyond their once sleepy city. Mud Ride offers an inside look at the tight-knit grunge scene, the musical influences and experiments that shaped the grunge sound, and the story of Turner's bands, Green River and Mudhoney, which went from underground flophouse shows to selling out stadiums with Nirvana and Pearl Jam. Including never-before-seen photos and stories about the key moments, musicians, and albums, this is really the first account of the musical phenomenon that took over the world from someone who was there for it all. Next up is Young Queer America by Maxwell Poth with a foreword by Isis King. So this book collects the stories and portraits of 73 queer kids and teenagers from 15 different states. In their own words, young people share the challenges they face coming out or coming to terms with their own identities. They write about their families, their schoolmates, their teachers, and the queer community they've found throughout their journeys. And they offer messages of love and support to their LGBTQ+ peers. Featuring a foreword by trans actress and model Isis King, this book sends a powerful message that the queer community is everywhere. Finally, we have Touch Matters by Michael Bannacy. So I think everyone on this webinar will agree the pandemic showed us how difficult it was to have our ability to physically touch each other interrupted. In Touch Matters, social neuroscientist Michael Bannacy brings together diverse scientific insights from the Touch Test, the world's largest contemporary survey on touch, with 40,000 participants from 112 countries. Learn why a hugged person is a happier person, why teams who high-five each other win more games, and how a handshake makes you more likely to tell the truth. Bannacy offers a groundbreaking and surprising new perspective on the science of touch, with guidance on how to enhance your level of touch for a happier, healthier life. Speaking of staying in touch, be sure to connect with Chronicle Books online. And thanks, everyone. Over to Dina.
Thanks, Anastasia. Good morning, everyone. From sort of snowy Maine, we're getting some of the same snow that some of you are getting. So I'm very happy to be here talking about some of our books from Disney Publishing. As a reminder, our adult imprints do include National Geographic now, and we're thrilled to have them with us. Next slide, please. There we go. So starting off, some titles from our newest imprint, Anscape. Now, almost everyone can remember a teacher or a librarian who had an impact on their life. And in Lessons Learned and Cherished, The Teacher Who Changed My Life, award-winning ABC News journalist Deborah Roberts curates a collection of essays and musings from celebrity friends and colleagues alike that share how teachers and librarians changed them, imparted life lessons, and helped them get where they are today. It's an amazing group of contributors, including Oprah Winfrey, Jenna Hager-Bush, Al Roker, who's Deb Roberts' husband, if you didn't know, Misty Copeland, and more. Next. Thank you. We See Each Other is a look at the history of transgender representation in TV and film by Tre'vell Anderson, the award-winning cultural reporter, influencer, and host of an EW-sponsored podcast on the same subject. A literary reckoning, it unearths a transhistory that's long existed in plain sight and in the shadows of history, and further contextualizes our present moment of increased representation. The films and television shows that Tre'vell covers include, and this is no means extensive, but this is still a lot of them, Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, Psycho, Boys Don't Cry, America's Next Top Model, Some Like It Hot, Pose, RuPaul's Drag Race, and the list goes on and on. Next slide, please. Thank you. I've shared Yards Between Us before, but I wanted to remind you guys because it's moved. It was supposed to come out this past fall and it moved to this spring. So I just wanted to quickly go over it again. R.K. Russell, the first active NFL player to come out as bisexual, has written a groundbreaking no-holds-barred memoir on life in the NFL, remaking toxic masculinity into healthy masculinity and what it takes to live an authentic, love-filled life. Next, please. In On Earth as It Is on Television by debut novelist Emily Jane, when spaceships arrive and then depart suddenly without a word, the certainty that we are not alone in the universe turns to intense uncertainty as to our place within it. The story is told from multiple points of view. Blaine, who until now has been content to go along with the whims of his supermom wife and half-feral television-obsessed children. Heather, a bored rich girl in Malibu who wonders if the spaceships mean her life will finally start and get interesting. And Oliver, who becomes conscious and alert after 20 catatonic years and struggles to piece together his fragmented disco-infused memories and make sense of his desire to follow a strange cat on a westward journey. It's got spaceships, it's got cats, it's got aliens, it's got everything. It's a really awesome, fun read that I think you guys will all love. Next, please. So Cave of Bones has me really excited because I was an anthropology major, and this is a huge discovery. Lee Berger is an award-winning paleoarchaeologist whose explorations into human origins in Africa over the past 25 years have resulted in the discovery of more hominin fossil remains than any other. In the summer of 2022, Berger lost 50 pounds in order to wriggle through impossibly small openings in the Rising Star Cave complex in South Africa. Once inside, he made shocking new discoveries that stand to alter our fundamental understanding of what makes us human. There's also going to be a Netflix special. There was actually a Netflix crew with him on site. So there will be a movie sort of documenting all of this, but it's going to be very exciting. Next. So last up, I just want to give you a quick preview of some fiction titles coming late this summer and fall. Kiss the Girl is the third book, I've lost count, in the best-selling Meant to Be collection, which are modern-day rom-com reimaginings of some of our favorite stories. This one's part Little Mermaid, as you can probably tell from the title, but also part Hannah Montana. It's the story of Ariel, one of the most famous singers in the world, who spontaneously heads out on the road with Eric, the dreamy lead singer of an up-and-coming band who has no idea who she is. In Silicon Hearts, the youngest and brightest of the tech world are invited to work for one of the most prestigious companies in Silicon Valley. But when they discover that only a precious few will be offered full-time jobs, reckless ambition and cutthroat competition eclipse their burgeoning friendships and romances. The two debut authors are tech industry pros, and they've used their experience to craft an unflinching look at what it's really like to work in Silicon Valley. And lastly, even if you haven't seen the new Ant-Man movie, Quantumania, you probably know Paul Rudd's character, Scott Lang. Look Out for the Little Guy is the in-movie memoir by Scott Lang, also known as Ant-Man, that he's written and shared with the world, as seen on screen in the new movie. If you have seen the movie, you know the book is a big plot point, and we're proud to bring it to life. Paul did an amazing and hilarious video to promote the book. And in case you haven't seen it, I will drop the YouTube link in the chat for you to watch later. And next slide, that's it for me. Thank you guys so much for taking the time today. Everybody stay warm and dry from the horrible weather we're having around the country. And these are all the places you can find us. And I'll kick it over to Julia at Simon & Schuster.
Hi, everyone. This is Julia from Simon & Schuster's library team. It's so good to see you, even if it's very brief. So with that, I'm going to jump right in. Next slide. Thank you. So you cannot miss this gem, The Secret Book of Flora Lee, which one review beautifully says, this is one that upon finishing it, you close it gently, you hold it to your heart, you wipe your tears, and you smile before you set it down. That is gorgeous. And Patty Callahan Henry's brand new novel touches on two themes that are perennially popular, I think, with a lot of your patrons, and that is sisters and storytelling. It doesn't hurt that it's also set in World War II. It's 1939, and Hazel and Flora have been uprooted from their mother in a war-torn London in part of the very true Operation Pied Piper. Hazel distracts Flora from the horrors and isolation by creating a fairy tale of a magical land just for them. The unthinkable happens when Flora suddenly vanishes near a riverbank, and Hazel is shattered. She carries that guilt into her adulthood, where we find her 20 years later. She's back in London and about to start her career at Sotheby's, and her future does seem determined, but all is turned upside down yet again when she unwraps a package containing an illustrated book and the stories set in the imaginary world only known to Hazel and Flora. You'll be rooting for Hazel this whole time on this page-turning and feverish quest, revisiting long dormant relationships and bravely opening wounds from her past to find her sister and ultimately herself. And I hope you'll join me and my current read on Thursday, April 6th, where we'll hear from Patty Callahan Henry herself in our librarian preview. And I'll put the link in the chat to register for that in just a bit. Next, please. Okay, I can already see this debut all over the beach this summer, especially after the recent interest in film and TV, where you have unforgettable and messy characters set against glamour and wealth, which spark discussions about identity and class divides like you might see in Succession or White Lotus. The Niger Wife comes from Vanessa Walters, who has an insider look at this exclusive community of foreign women married to ultra-wealthy Nigerian men. And here she paints a picture of Nicole Orowai, who trades her gloomy London for the glamour and glittering Lagos. There would be no mystery if the cracks of her so-called perfect life didn't start to show. So Nicole goes missing from a boat trip without a trace, and there's a dead-end investigation. But leave it to her estranged Auntie Claudine, armed with only a cell phone and a plane ticket, and she's taking matters into her own hands, digging into her niece's life, uncovering a hidden life filled with dark secrets, isolation, and violence. The more she discovers about her niece, the more Claudine's own buried history threatens to come to light. You don't want to miss it. That one is coming on May 2nd. Next, please. Next up, I hope many of you and your readers are looking forward to TJ Alexander's next witty, charming, and inclusive rom-com. Again, TJ focuses on queer joy in Chef's Choice, starring the recurring character Luna O'Shea. Luna is unceremoniously fired from her office job, counting her blessings though, because she's a proud trans woman with plenty of friends and a good life in New York City. But blessings are just not going to pay the bills. Enter Jean-Pierre, a laissez-faire trans man and the heir to a huge culinary empire, which he'll only inherit if he can jump through the hoops that his celebrity chef grandfather has placed in his path. First, he needs a girlfriend, and that is a role that Luna is happy to play for the right price, because she has rent after all. Second, they both need to learn how to cook a series of elaborate, world-renowned family recipes to prove that Jean-Pierre is a worthy heir. Admittedly, Luna doesn't even know how to crack an egg, but she won't let that or any pesky feelings for Jean-Pierre stop her. It's another swoon-worthy and heartwarming love story coming this May. Next, please. The Invisible Hour is Alice Hoffman's new novel about love, heartbreak, self-discovery, and the enduring magic of books. One brilliant June day, when Mia Jacob could no longer see a way to survive, the power of words save her. The Scarlet Letter was written almost 200 years earlier, but it seems to tell the story of Mia's mother, Ivy, and their life inside the community, an oppressive cult in Western Massachusetts, where contact with the outside world is forbidden and books are considered evil. But how can this be? And how could Nathaniel Hawthorne have so perfectly captured the pain and loss that Mia carries inside of her? Through a journey of heartbreak, love, and time, Mia must abandon the rules she was raised with at the community. As she does, she realizes that reading can transport you to other worlds and that readers and writers affect one another in mysterious ways. You can look for that coming this August. Next, please. So you can visit our website, simonandschuster.net/library, for many more recommendations and resources, plus more info on our preview featuring Patty Callahan Henry, where I hope to see you next. All right, bye all.
And hello, I'm Margaret Coffey from Sourcebooks. Greetings from chilly, but for once not snowy Chicago. And I'm looking forward to telling you about some of my favorite upcoming summer titles. Please visit our website for discussion guides and newsletter sign up. Visit Edelweiss and NetGalleys for e-galleys. Next slide. Starting off with our landmark fiction line, I hope you've had a chance to read some of our wonderful recent backlist landmark titles. And next, just a quick note about Clytemnestra. This book is hot. That's what we're saying internally. You may have heard that our Clytemnestra was cursed by the gods once again when the entire print run was destroyed in a truck fire on the way to the warehouse. The good thing is you have an extra month to read it for Library Reads. And next slide. Nancy Horan, author of the million-copy New York Times bestseller Loving Frank, returns with a sweeping historical novel which tells the story of Abraham Lincoln's ascendance from rumpled lawyer to U.S. president to the great emancipator through the eyes of a young asylum seeker who arrives in Lincoln's home of Springfield from Portugal. 14-year-old Anna Ferreira lands a job in the Lincoln household, assisting Mary Lincoln with her boys and with the hostess duties borne by the wife of a rising political star. Anna bears witness to the evolution of Lincoln's views on equality and the Union. Along with her African-American best friend, Cal, Anna encounters the presence of the Underground Railroad in town and experiences personally how slavery is tearing apart her adopted country. Culminating in an eyewitness account of the little-known Springfield race riot of 1908, the House of Lincoln takes readers on a journey through the historic changes that reshaped America and that continue to reverberate today. Next slide. Debut author and Alabama librarian Tara Shelton Harris has crafted One Summer in Savannah. This emotionally wrought story is perfect for book clubs. Sarah Lancaster is desperate to protect her daughter from the family of the man who assaulted her while trying to heal her own wounds from the past. Sarah returns to the Georgia home she fled after she was raped 8 years before. While caring for her ill father and running his bookstore, Sarah's desperate to protect her curious, outgoing, genius daughter, Alana, the child of that rape from the rapist's family. Her attacker's identical twin brother, Jacob, has also returned home to uncover and understand the violation that brought about the family's downfall while seeking to forgive his incarcerated brother. When their two worlds collide unexpectedly, Sarah and Jacob are drawn together. Told in alternating points of view, One Summer in Savannah is a heartbreaking yet hopeful story that deeply interrogates questions of redemption and forgiveness. Next slide. And now on to our nonfiction slide. And next slide again. In Unlikable Female Characters, find out how bitches, train wrecks, shrews, and crazy women have taken over pop culture and liberated women from having to be nice. Female characters throughout history have been burdened by the moral trap that is likability. Any woman who dares to reveal her messy side has been treated as a cautionary tale. And yet today, unlikable female characters are everywhere in film, TV, and wider pop culture. Anna Bugurskaya, film programmer, broadcaster, and co-founder of the horror film collective and podcast, The Final Girls, traces the evolution of female characters from Samantha Jones on Sex and the City to the iconic mean girl, Regina George, examining what exactly makes them popular and how audiences have reacted to them. Next slide. Everyone loves a good mystery. Next slide, especially if the writer is international best-selling author Caroline Cooney, who has sold 15 million books worldwide. The Wrong Good Deed is a companion to Before She Was Helen, which Sourcebooks published in 2020. Told in a dual timeline, this novel explores the dark secret of one fateful afternoon in the Jim Crow South, which is revealed 50 years later. 1964. Christophine is 20 years old, newly married. She discovers her husband Tommy and his friends are on the verge of committing a horrible crime, and she does what she has to stop them. Afterwards, she knows she can't go home again, so she disappears. 50 years later, Muffin is convinced that she's just spotted a dangerous figure from her past and reveals to her friend Clemmy what happened in the middle of a field in South Carolina 5 decades ago. Clemmy realizes her friend has been keeping dark secrets, just as Clemmy herself has, and the secrets that belong to both women are not the kind that can be revealed without dire consequences. Next slide. How about some happily ever after? Next. New York Times bestselling author Furyborn, Claire Legrand makes her stunning adult debut with A Crown of Ivy and Glass, a lush, sweeping fantasy romance series starter that's perfect for fans of Bridgerton and A Court of Thorns and Roses. Lady Gemma Ashbourne seemingly has it all. She's young, gorgeous, rich. Her family was anointed by the gods, blessed with incredible abilities. But underneath her glittering facade, Gemma's deeply sad. Years ago, her sister was taken to the Middle Mist to guard against treacherous magic. Her mother abandoned the family. Her father and elder sister, embroiled in a deadly feud with another family, often forgets Gemma exists. Worst of all, Gemma's the only Ashbourne to possess no magic. Instead, her body fights it like poison. Constantly ill, aching with loneliness, Gemma craves love and yearns to belong. Then she meets the devastatingly handsome Talon de Auster. She's drawn towards him in an all-consuming passion that could destroy her or show her the true strength of her power at last. And next, on to the sexy heat of the Bloom imprint. And next again, yep. The follow-up to the #1 New York Times bestseller, The Mister, is The Mrs., a passionate and thrilling love story from E.L. James, author of the phenomenally best-selling 50 Shades trilogies. What happens once the glass slipper fits? Maxim, reluctant Earl of Trevithick, has pursued the woman he loves to the wilds of Albania. Having fought for and won her, he now has to wed her at the sharp end of a shotgun. But can a reformed rake ever make a good husband? Or will his notorious reputation and the scandalous secrets of his aristocratic family destroy his newfound happiness? Alicia has defied and outwitted kidnappers and traffickers and won the heart of the man she loves. But can she make this marriage work? From the majestic mountains of Albania through the rural idyll of the English countryside to the shady glamour of contemporary London, The Mrs. is a spellbinding journey of love, longing, acceptance, and redemption. Next slide. And finally, A Game of Gods. Told in multiple points of view, A Game of Gods is the final hot and sexy installment in the Hades saga by USA Today bestselling author and librarian Scarlett St. Clair. Hades, god of the dead, has finally made Persephone his in every way possible. With their wedding on the horizon, the couple should be ecstatic, but the gods of Olympus are wreaking havoc on their bliss. Hades refuses to allow anything to stop him from securing Persephone as his bride, but he must play a deep strategic game with the gods of Olympus to safeguard their future. And it is not entirely clear which gods are on his side. Next, a quick peek at some of our upcoming Bloom titles. And last slide, visit our website for other fabulous upcoming titles. Thanks for listening. Have a great day, and over to Golda.
Hi, everybody. Thank you all for joining us today. We are very excited to be celebrating our 100th anniversary at Norton this year and happy to continue publishing great books that cover a lot of different topics. So here are just a few highlights. Next slide, please. So I've presented these titles a few times already, and I'll put a link to the recent booklist webinar in the chat after I present. So this is just a reminder that Library Reads votes are due by April 1st for May titles. I especially enjoyed The Night Flowers, which I hope you will check out on Edelweiss or NetGalley. Next slide. The votes for June titles are due by May 1st, and we're having a webinar with Deborah Willis on March 28th. I'll also post the registration link for that in the chat. Next slide. Serhii Plakhy, a leading historian of Ukraine, the Cold War, and the author of The Gates of Europe, offers a definitive account of the Russo-Ukrainian War its origins, and the already apparent and possible future consequences in this new book coming out in May. Next slide. Claire Patak is best known as the baker for Harry and Meghan's wedding cake. In her new book, Love is a Pink Cake, she offers 75 sweet and savory creations, including the recipe for the Duke and Duchess's lemon elderflower cake. Next slide. In his follow-up to the best-selling The Color of Law, Richard Rothstein teams up with his daughter, Leah Rothstein, a housing policy expert, to present ideas for changes that can and should be made to help reduce residential segregation. Just Action describes dozens of activities that readers and supporters can undertake in their own communities to help remedy America's unconstitutional past. Next slide. In 1964, Eyes of the Storm, you can see the exhilarating period in which the Beatles became an international sensation and changed the course of music history. The book features 275 images, all taken by Paul McCartney, and an essay by Joe Lepore that describes how the Beatles became the first truly global mass culture phenomenon. Next slide. Blair Kelly is the director of the Center for the Study of the American South and co-director of the Southern Futures Initiative at the University of North Carolina. In her new book, Black Folk, she restores the Black working class to the center of the American story. As millions of Black people migrated around the country, they formed networks of resistance and joy that sustained early arrivals and newcomers alike, and laid the groundwork for organizing for better jobs, better pay, and equal rights. The fascination with the white working class has powered numerous best-selling books like Hillbilly Elegy and White Trash. In Black Folk, we have a reminder that the working class is incredibly diverse. Next slide. Disturbance is a genre-bending debut novel that follows a woman's attempt to heal from an abusive relationship with the help of Black magic. Alone in a new town, the narrator falls in with her neighbor and her witchy friend, exploring nascent supernatural powers as the boundaries of reality seem to shift. When the creaks and hums of her apartment escalate into something more violent, she realizes that she may have brought her toxic ex-boyfriend's presence back to haunt her. With emotional depth and clarity, Disturbance explores the fallout of abuse and twists witchcraft and horror into powerful narrative of one woman's struggle to return to herself. Next slide. So I had to stop watching The Last of Us as soon as the first person was turned into a zombie by a fungus. That may still be far-fetched, but blight, fungi, and the coming pandemic is here to tell you about the infectious fungi endangering many species. Emily Moneson documents how trade, travel, and a changing climate are making us all more vulnerable to invasion. Blight serves as a wake-up call and a reminder of the delicate interconnectedness of the natural world. Next slide. There are always way more books in a season than I can present, so I hope you will check out our summer catalog in Edelweiss. And on the next slide, we just had our fall sales conference last week, so I'm especially excited about new novels from Anne Enright and Bonnie Jo Campbell. And we're launching our new Norton Short series with books by Taya Miles and Ashley Shue, who you can hear from at Library Journal Day of Dialogue. And on the last slide, I just have my contact information, and I'll post links to everything in the chat. So thank you all, and over to Lainey.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. On the next slide, you'll just see a link, but all of the titles are in this bigger catalog, which I just put in the chat. On the next slide, our social, librarylovefest.com is the best way to find us. And we're going to get right into the books. So the next is Size by Vaclav Smil. This is the author of over 40 books on a wide range of topics, environmental, population, it goes on and on. In 2010, he was named by Foreign Policy as one of the top 100 global thinkers. Bill Gates has called him his favorite author, and he's been profiled and interviewed everywhere. So no one better to talk about this next topic, size, which seems very large, pun intended, but many different subjects and disciplines are pulled together to give a really full picture of how we as humans understand size and how we relate to size. It explains regularities, peculiarities of key processes shaping life, Earth, technical advances, societies and economies. We learn the rules governing beauty, why a biosphere needs diversity, why bigger animals need proportionately less food, why people in hotter climates have longer legs. That's just a sample of the thoughtful insights in this book. It's already got a Kirkus starred review. We're really excited about this one. It's going to be big. And next is Hotel Cuba by Aaron Hamburger. This is the author of the prize-winning story collection titled The View from Stalin's Head. This novel follows sensible Pearl Khan and her impulsive younger sibling Frida. They sail for America to flee a chaotic World War I and the terror of the Soviet Revolution. They're going to join their sister in New York, but when they get there, there's a lot of discriminatory new immigration laws, and they're turned back at Ellis Island. So they don't have very many options. They go to Prohibition-era Havana in Cuba and are convinced that they will find a way back to New York. They adjust to this really overwhelming place, unlike their home before. And as they try to make it, their plans are more complicated. They fall in love and confront their past. And, it's a very different immigration story. It's set in a sunny tropical space, but by way of America. And it depicts the queer spaces of Havana, New York as well. And there are a lot of great reviews coming in for this one. The story is also based on the author's own grandmother's immigration story. And there's a really beautiful author's note on Edelweiss. So please go check that out. He did a lot of research to capture this time and place and the immigrant experience. Next is Our Hideous Progeny by C.E. McGill. This is a very cool, spooky, gothic, Victorian era debut as a queer reimagining of Mary Shelley's classic Frankenstein. I don't know what else I could say besides that description to hook you, but I will tell you a little bit more about the book. So we start with Mary, who is mourning the death of her infant, and she and her husband, Henry, are called to his father's estate after he dies. There, Mary realizes that while she was at home dealing with this loss, Victor dealt with it by gambling. So they don't have any money and they are kind of being written out of this will. Mary knows that her great uncle disappeared under mysterious circumstances in the Arctic, but not the reasons behind it. His name was Victor Frankenstein. And it's set against this 1853 London. It's buzzing with scientific theories and debates. And Henry's a geologist, so Mary and Henry want to make their name in this world of science, but they don't have any money or connections. And she has a plan she's going to go after. She discovers some family papers alluding to the shocking truth behind her great uncle's disappearance. And it's a queer feminist story. It's about ambition, obsession, forbidden love, and like Mary Shelley's having a moment right now. And if you want really dark tales that switch up the narrative, like Emily M. Danforth's Plainbound Heroines, this is the perfect to keep the vibes going. And that's out in May. So next is You Can't Stay Here Forever by Catherine Lynn. It's another debut. The author is also a lawyer in the Bay Area, which will make sense when I get into what the book's about. After her young, handsome husband suddenly dies in a car accident, Ellie Huang discovers that he had a mistress, one of her own colleagues, in fact, at a prestigious law firm in San Francisco. Acting on impulse or grief or rage or all three, Ellie cashes in Ian's life insurance policy and goes to stay at a luxurious hotel in France. And she is at this 5-star resort with her best friend. So there's a fun friend story. And they meet an intriguing couple. Their poolside chats roll into wine-soaked dinners. It's a perfect sunlit getaway. And there's a lot of race and privilege explored. I wanted something after White Lotus. I think this is the perfect next step. And then just quickly, I'm going to tell you about Excavations, the last title. It's another fun escape set in Greece in the summer at a archaeological dig. 4 women who don't really get along have to learn to get along after a big discovery is made, and this older relic himself, man who's over the dig, doesn't want to accept that maybe women had to do with the first Olympics. So they come together and decide what their place is in this world and what women's place was in the grander world. A reminder, we're going live at 2. The Library Love Fest team is today with 3 mystery authors on our Facebook and Crowdcast. I'll put those links in there and come hear about some great mystery reads. Thank you. And I'm handing it over to Allison.
Hi, everybody. So I am, Allison Haberstroh. I'm the marketing specialist at Consortium Book Sales and Distribution. We're at Consortium, we're a distributor of about 150 publishers from around the world, and I'm excited to share just a few upcoming titles with you here today. Next slide. So up first, we have Like the Appearance of Horses by Andrew Krivak, coming out in May from Bellevue Literary Press. You'll likely recognize Krivak from his 2020 novel, The Bear, which was a National Endowment for the Arts Big Read selection. So in this novel, it's a novel of one family, a century of war, and the promise of homecoming. Like the Appearance of Horses will immerse readers in the intimate lives of a family spanning 4 generations, whose fierce bonds have been shaped by the great conflicts of the past century, from World War I and II to Vietnam and Iraq. This book is the freestanding, culminating novel in Krivak's award-winning Dardenne trilogy, which began with The Sojourn, which was a National Book Award finalist, and also The Signal Flame. As author Mary Doria Russell said, Krivak is a writer of rare and powerful elegance. Plus, with a Kirkus starred review that just dropped today for this book, this latest novel is definitely one you won't want to miss. On to the next. Then we have from the author of Elena Knows, finalist for the 2022 International Booker Prize, comes a new novel by the Argentinian writer Claudia Pinheiro and translated by Francis Riddle, releasing this July from Charco Press. A Little Luck tells the story of Mary Lohan, who after fleeing her Buenos Aires suburban town to move to Boston, returns home after 20 years to confront the past and the reverberations of a shocking accident she abandoned decades before. In this story of lies, the messy lines between bravery and cowardice, and the tragedies, both big and small, that can ripple out from a single decisive event, Pinheiro weaves together a masterful thriller that questions the role of fate versus chance in life, though perhaps it's nothing more than a little bit of luck. Next slide. For fans of the movie Megan, the TV show Black Mirror, and just stories of AI gone rogue, comes a new novel from Clash Books called Afterward by Nina Schuyler, about a pioneer of artificial intelligence who rebuilds the love of her life. But when she learns that her technology is being used to spy on Chinese citizens, funneling information to the Chinese government, she must decide whether to keep or destroy her digital lost love. Espionage, secrets, and human desires collide in this propulsive novel that author Katie Flynn describes as an intimate love story and a powerful study on grief, a gripping mystery that examines the limits and possibilities of technology, and within that, a deeper mystery, what it is to love and truly know someone. Next, we have a Journal of a Black Queer Nurse. This is a searing and honest memoir published by Common Notions, in which Brittany Daniels, a Black queer ER nurse, recounts her work on the front lines of care during COVID-19 and the day-to-day traumas she witnessed. In turns, hilarious, gut-wrenching, and infuriating, this memoir, which began as a personal diary, is told from the perspective of a deeply empathetic, no-nonsense young nurse, and makes visible the way race, inequality, and a profit-driven healthcare system make the hospital a place where systematic racism is lived. Librarian Caitlin Bowler of Fergus Falls Public Library calls this book a 5-star read. And next. And our last title for the day is Diana, My Graphic Obsession, a graphic novel published by Street Noise Books and written by Sivan Piatigorsky-Roth, whose cartoons have appeared in The New Yorker. This unorthodox biography of Princess Diana in graphic novel form is told through the author's autistic transmasculine lens and examines issues of identity, self-determination, and the mythological parallels between the lives of the royal family and the author. And that was like last slide. And that is all from me. Thanks so much for tuning in. Digital review copies are available on Edelweiss for all these titles. So please make sure to check out these titles and Consortium's full catalogs online, which I'll drop a few links in the chat. And feel free to shoot me an email if you have any questions. Thanks so much. Have a great day.
Hi, everybody. My name is Amanda Casterly. I'm from Blackstone Publishing. Thank you for joining us today to hear about our upcoming books. First up, on the next slide, we have The Wisdom of Maury. Maury Schwartz became an internationally renowned figure after Mitch Albom's Tuesdays with Maury stayed #1 on the New York Times nonfiction bestseller list for an incredible 5 years. Before that, he was a beloved professor of sociology at Brandeis University and wrote on a wide variety of topics. He dedicated his life to helping people understand their relationships to society, other people, and themselves. This is Maury in his own words for the first time, offering insight on how to live, how to love, and how to stay vibrant. And the book was edited by Maury's son, Rob, so there's a special connection there. The book has powerful endorsements there from Deepak Chopra and Ted Koppel. It also has gotten a glowing review from Publishers Weekly. Daniel Pink, the author of the #1 New York Times bestseller, The Power of Regret, called the book a remarkable work. It's also a Publishers Weekly pick of top 10 upcoming lifestyle books. And AARP Magazine and Reader's Digest will both be running features about the book. The Wisdom of Maury will speak to fans of Tuesdays with Maury, but it will also bring in new readers. It deals with aging, but it's also generally inspirational, so it's a perfect opportunity to introduce Maury to a new generation. And we really see this one as being kind of an instant classic in its own right, as well as a great companion, of course, to Tuesdays with Maury. Next, we have You Shouldn't Have Come Here by Geneva Rose. This is the highly anticipated new thriller from the USA Today bestselling author of The Perfect Marriage and One of Us is Dead. When Grace Evans books an Airbnb on a ranch in the middle of Wyoming, she's pleased to find that the owner is a handsome man eager to introduce her to his easygoing way of life. But what begins as a playful romance soon turns into a complicated web of lies. Geneva Rose has a huge following on social media. She's been doing a lot of promotion around this new book, so her fans are really super excited. She was live on Barnes & Noble's Instagram in February. She'll be doing another Instagram takeover with them in April around the book's release. The book also has a lot of great endorsements coming in. Publishers Weekly called it an intriguing thriller. Rose should win new fans with this one. And Colleen Hoover raved that it's everything I want in a thriller. Geneva Rose is the queen of twists. Next, we have Emilienne by Pamela Bennings-Ewan. From the bestselling author of The Queen of Paris comes a glittering new novel about youth, beauty, and having the courage to carve your own path in a world on the brink of war. Emilienne, once the most beautiful and sought-after woman in Paris, watches her friend Coco Chanel rise to fame and fortune while her own star diminishes during the years just before World War I. Queen of Paris was very strong with library readers and was a popular book club book. This new novel features some of the same characters, but it isn't a sequel, so it's a great follow-up, but it also really stands on its own. Next, we have Weapons of Opportunity by Dale Brown. From the New York Times bestselling author of Countdown to Midnight, this new novel finds Nick Flynn once again facing a vicious enemy, one determined to destroy the United States. With official U.S. intelligence organizations blind to an emerging threat from Russia, Nick and his team are the last line of defense, risking everything to stop a powerful oligarch before millions die. Worldwide sales of Brown's novels, audiobooks, and ebooks exceed 15 million copies, so we're expecting this one to continue that trend and be really exciting for all of his readers. Next, we have What Remains by Wendy Walker. Wendy Walker is the author of many psychological suspense novels. Her novels have been translated into 23 foreign languages, top bestseller lists both nationally and abroad, and have been optioned for television and film. In this new story, Detective Elise Sutton is drawn to cold cases, and she has dedicated her life to creating a sense of order. When she walks into a department store and is forced to make a terrible choice, she had everything under control until that day. So she has to make a big decision and turns everything upside down for her. We have great reviews coming in for this one. A.J. Finn, author of the New York Times bestseller, The Woman in the Window, said, absolutely splendid storytelling, a book to entertain, to immerse, and to challenge. Then we have just a little reminder to please submit Library Reads votes for any of our titles that you enjoy. And always feel free to reach out to us for galleys. Finally, we have our contact information there. So if you are interested in galleys or have any questions, please reach out. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Annie Mazes. A big thank you to all of you for being here, taking the time to listen to us. And a big thank you, bigger thank you to Emily and Lainey for setting all of this up. I will be talking about some Workman Publishing titles today. Workman is now part of the Hachette Book Group. So these are our social channels. That's our website. That's how you can email me. Please get in touch if you have any questions or want any ARCs. If I have print copies, I'm happy to send them. First title up. Hi, Lillian. First title up is Night Bloom. This is by the author of Reese's Book Club pick, His Only Wife, Peace Adzomede. She returns with a moving novel about the unbreakable power of female friendship after two inseparable young women become estranged, one moving to the US. Only a crisis can bring them back together and reconnect their bond. A riveting depiction of class and family in Ghana, a compelling exploration of memory, and an eye-opening story of life as an African-born woman in the United States. Night Bloom is a gripping, beautifully written novel attesting to the necessity of female friendship in the face of societies that would silence them. This is perfect for readers of The Girl with the Louding Voice, Americana, and of Women and Salt. Next up is Inside the Wolf. Set in the rural South, Inside the Wolf is a novel about two accidental gun deaths and the true cost inflicted by the myths of masculinity and hunting on a small town community. Rachel Ruskin never intended to return to her family's tobacco farm in Shiloh, North Carolina, but when her academic career flames out, she has no choice. In the wake of family loss, she is alone, haunted by memories, by ghosts, and by Shiloh's buried history of racism and violence. Amy Rowland is originally from rural North Carolina herself, and she evokes the beauty of the setting and the vibrancy of its oral traditions while remaining clear-eyed about the dark side of both. Next is We Must Not Think of Ourselves. On a November day in 1940, Adam Pascow becomes a prisoner in the Warsaw Ghetto. Weeks later, he is approached by a mysterious figure with a surprising request. Will he join a secret group of archivists working to preserve the truth of what is happening inside these walls? One of the people Adam interviews is his flatmate, Sala Wiskoff, determined, funny, married with 2 children. Over the months of their confinement in the presence of her family, Adam and Sala fall in love. A story of love, determination, and sacrifice for fans of Kristen Harmel's The Book of Lost Names and Lauren Fox's Send for Me. Lauren is going to be part of the Book for Every Reader panel that we are putting on that Golda mentioned earlier. I'll put a link to register for that in the chat. Next up, we have Love Across Borders. We are told that love conquers all, but what happens when you don't have the right passport? With deep empathy, rigorous reporting, and the irresistible perspective of a true romantic, journalist Annalise Miller tells the story of couples around the world who must confront Kafkaesque immigration systems to be together, as she did to be with her husband. Next is Navigating Infertility. This breaks down complicated clinical information and expert medical advice from top specialists in the field. The book includes first-person stories and hard-won advice from women who have been down this long and often painful road, human included, and offers a clear-eyed look at the emotional and psychological landmines that come with the journey. The result is a book that inspires as much as it educates and is a much-needed source of support and inspiration for readers looking for understanding and hope. And finally, The Garden Maker's Book of Wonder. Popular gardening lifestyle influencer Alison Valen Kostovic, creator of Finch and Folly, invites fans of gardening and nature-based living to share her journey as she crafts, cooks, dreams, and creates. Highly recommend following Finch and Folly on Instagram, just FYI, because it's all beautiful. Very calming and completely not something I could create. But using this book, I might be able to, and so can you. Drawing on decades of gardening experience and illustrated with vibrant photography from her own home and garden, The Garden Maker's Book of Wonder offers advice on growing vegetables, herbs, and flowers. All levels of gardeners will delight in the variety and creativity of Kostovic's projects, and the inventive ideas are sure to make it a favorite for anyone who aspires to a more nature-connected lifestyle. That's it for me. I will put our relevant links in the chat. Please feel free to contact me if you have any questions. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm Katie Vaughn. I'm the Assistant Marketing Manager at Bloomsbury USA, and I'm so excited to tell you about some of our upcoming titles. I will drop our Google Form link in the chat so you can easily find these books on NetGalley and Edelweiss and request review copies. But for now, we will jump right into the first slide. In May, we have The Humble Lover, which is a wildly hilarious and irreverent novel about a rich older man who falls in love with a young ballerino, written by the man the New York Times calls the paterfamilias of queer literature, Edmund White. It received a starred review in PW, and Kirkus summed it up perfectly by calling it the most clever and creative pornographic novel ever written by an octogenarian. Everything you love about White, explicit sex, French champagne, and insouciant murder included. Also in May, we have Glassworks, which is an irresistibly intimate queer debut novel, which follows one family across 4 generations to explore legacy and identity in all its forms. C.J. Hauser described it as if Elizabeth McCracken and David Mitchell had a love child, and it's perfect for readers of Mary Beth Keane, Minjin Lee, and Rebecca Mackay. Then May is also pub month for the Flavor Thesaurus, More Flavors, which is the plant-led follow-up to Nikki Segnit's debut. This new installment features 99 essential ingredients and hundreds of flavor combinations, making it the perfect reference book for any kitchen. And then in June, we have I Feel Love, which chronicles how the psychedelic drug MDMA emerged from the shadows to the forefront of a medical revolution and the potential it may hold to help us thrive. Then on the next slide, we have The Pornography Wars by Kelsey Burke. This is a necessary and comprehensive new look at pornography and American life, offering a complete understanding of the major players and debates around porn's place in society. Everyone from sex workers, activists, therapists, religious leaders, and consumers. Burke addresses and debunks the myths that surround porn and its usage, creating what Kirkus calls an intellectually stimulating read for porn fans and critics alike. Then on the next slide, we have Women We Buried, Women We Burned, an incredible new memoir from the author of the groundbreaking No Visible Bruises, Rachel Louise Snyder. It's a piercing account of Rachel's journey from teenage runaway, escaping an evangelical cult-like existence, to becoming a reporter on the global epidemic of domestic violence. Women We Buried is perfect for fans of Educated and The Glass Castle, and in their starred review, Kirkus called it a must-read memoir. And then on the following slide, we have Deep as the Sky, Red as the Sea by Rita Chang Epic. This sweeping debut novel blends historical fiction, modern questions around gender and trauma, and beautiful writing for an unputdownable reading experience about a legendary Chinese pirate queen. We've heard amazing things from our early readers, and we're crossing our fingers for the June Library Reads list for this one, so that deadline is May 1st if you find yourself reading and loving Deep as the Sky. And then on the next slide, we have Nothing Special by Sally Rooney endorsed author Nicole Flattery, a blistering, mordantly funny, and whip-smart coming-of-age story set in Andy Warhol's factory in the 60s, bringing to life the experience of young girls in an iconic and turbulent American moment. It's been named a most anticipated book of 2023 by Harper's, The Guardian, Bustle, Irish Times, and Nylon, and is perfect for fans of Otessa Moshfegh and Mary Gateskill. And then finally, on the next slide, we have all of these fantastic titles on deck as well. A Splash of Soy is the new cookbook from Lara Lee, the beloved author of Coconut and Sambal. History's Angel is a moving US debut following a middle-aged man in contemporary India, exploring the world's treatment of Muslims, the politicization of history, and the way politics and family collide. In How to Say Goodbye, New York Times bestselling artist Wendy McNaughton shares wisdom from hospice caregivers. The Core of an Onion is the latest deep dive from James Beard Award-winning author Mark Kurlansky. Anansi's Gold is the never-before-told story of a con artist in Ghana who pulled off one of the 20th century's most spectacular frauds. Every Drop is a Man's Nightmare is a blazing debut story collection exploring contemporary Hawaiian identity and womanhood, serving as both a fierce love letter to Hawaiian mythology and a searing dispatch from an occupied territory threatening to erupt with violent secrets. And finally, I Must Be Dreaming is the hilarious new graphic narrative from #1 New York Times bestselling, award-winning New Yorker cartoonist Roz Chast, exploring the surreal nighttime world inside her mind and untangling one of our most enduring human mysteries, dreams. Alison Bechdel calls it Roz Chast at her chastiest and says that the cartoons, quote, reduced me repeatedly to spasms of laugh crying. Indeed, I imagine Freud and Jung are not only spinning in their graves right now, they are peeing their pants. And on the last slide, that is it for us. Thank you so much for listening and being here today. Please do take a look at that Google form in the chat. I'll drop all of our links. Thanks, everybody. And over to you, Chris.
Thank you so much, Katie, and hello to everyone. My name is Chris Vicari of Union Square and Company, and these are the books. Next slide, please. New for spring and just out, The Daughters of Madurai, a novel about the power of love and overcoming all obstacles that is also the Barnes & Noble Book Club selection for March of 23. Not So Perfect Strangers is an updated homage to Hitchcock's Strangers on a Train by L.S. Stratton, who will be joining us at the Texas Library Association conference next month, should you be there. A Shadow Crown is book 2 in what a Booklist starred review called the, quote, rich fantasy world of the Broken Blade series. And if you're looking to level up, pivot, or re-enter the workforce, nothing is out of reach when you get yourself on brand with author Elisa Licht. Next slide, please. The Partisan, a debut by Patrick Worrell that Publishers Weekly in a starred review said is, quote, Dr. Zhivago meets James Bond and fans of intricate Cold War era spy thrillers will be enthralled. And Lee Child said is up there with the best in the genre. Come in from the cold, my friends, and read The Partisan. Also, Patrick, our author, will be speaking on the Book for Every Reader virtual panel on Tuesday, March 28th, coming soon. Next slide, please. Check in on May 16th to Hotel 21 and meet Noelle, a friendly hotel housekeeper who, when you're not looking, may steal from you and other guests small stuff, lipstick here, hair clip there. That is until she becomes friends with her new colleagues at her 21st hotel, not because they're rival thieves, no, but because they're nice women with normal lives. And they make her wonder what it might be like to have real friends. That is, of course, unless her old habits return. Hotel 21 is a story about resilience that I liked from page 1, and it just got a Booklist star. Oh my goodness. Next is Truly, Darkly, Deeply, a different take on the usual serial killer novel about a young girl named Sophie, who upon visiting the man she helped put behind bars for life, this man who dated her mom, who she once loved like a father, now 20 years after he went to prison, she begins to wonder if he was actually a killer. The twists keep coming in Truly, Darkly, Deeply by Victoria Selman, and this publishes in June of 2023. Next slide, please. In September, we have The Dance of the Dolls. It tells the story of Olivia and Clara, identical twin ballerinas, rehearsing for the comic ballet Coppelia at a recently opened theater. Now, while they're different in many ways, Olivia is meticulous, Clara is disorganized, they are not rivals. They truly love each other, but eventually one man's love means that one of the sisters will soon be in danger, and it is their support for each other that will matter most of all, as the story of Coppelia and the Dancing Doll threatens to become a dark and sinister reality in this wonderful book by author Lucy Ash. Next up, it's fun, it's frothy, it's Fling by Joseph Murray. Tara and Colin consider themselves soulmates, but after 6 years of marriage, many failed attempts to have children. Both felt their best days were behind them, so each on their own, desperate to shake it up, find themselves on a new dating app called Fling, where married people can find discreet, anonymous, faithful affairs online, as long as there are no photos, no real names, and please God, no distinguishing details. Soon, Colin and Tara are sent 100% perfect match profiles, and they realize what they're looking for might be closer than they think. Next slide is The Temple of Fortuna, book 3 in the Wolf Den trilogy by Elodie Harper. I know we have a lot of fans out there. Our lead character, Amara's journey, has taken her far from a slave in Pompey's Wolf Den to a high-powered courtesan in Rome, but her story in this recreation of an ancient world is not over yet and continues to thrill, although it is AD 79 and Mount Vesuvius is about to arrive. And after all of that ballet, online dating, and volcanic eruptions in the next slide, we hope you can find time to bake your heart out with Dan Langan in his debut cookbook. Dan shares nostalgic vibe and a cutting-edge approach with 100 recipes for game-changing versions of familiar classics, plus unique creations and the pro secrets that make his bakes better. A Philadelphia resident, a social media star, a former winner of Cake Wars, and regular guest on Good Morning America, Dan has been baking his heart out since he was 5 years old, and he can take anyone's skills and make them as enticing as the treats themselves, like these next slide, delightful gingerbread cutouts. Lastly, no slide here. You can move to my next slide, but lastly, It was joyfully announced last week that we are publishing Let's Eat by Dan Pelosi, and I hope you can see my jacket here. Dan is known on social as Grossy Pelosi. It hit the #1 spot on Amazon Movers and Shakers after his Instagram announcement last week. OMG, Let's Eat publishes in September of 23. My friends, those are the books, and that's the way it is on March 14th. Thank you for your time. Next up is Erica from Soho.
Hey everyone, thanks so much, Chris. I'm Erica from Soho Press. If you're not familiar with us, we publish award-winning crime fiction under Soho Crime, literary fiction under Soho Press, and YA under Soho Teen. I have a few really exciting titles to share with you, so that'll get started on the next slide, please. First up, from our literary imprint in July, we have Half-Life of a Stolen Sister by Rachel Cantor. You may recognize the Bronte sisters on the cover here, and that's because this is a fictionalization of their lives alongside their brother Branwell, anchored by key moments of the Bronte siblings' lives from childhood, when their mother and 2 eldest sisters passed away, to their formative young adult years when they began writing, more seriously to adulthood when all but Charlotte passed away at still young ages. Rachel Cantor reimagines their lives, placing them in a mostly 20th century setting that's really recognizable and makes them feel closer to our contemporary world. The novel is told through an eclectic mix of diaries, letters, TV and radio interviews, and other forms to create an evocative portrait where the Brontes feel real and intimately familiar, like close family friends, and we get to immerse ourselves in their imaginative adventures, heartbreaks, complex relationships, and journeys of self-discovery. It's a novel full of sadness, just as their lives were, but there's also a lot of fun, joy, humor, and love. Fans of the Brontes will have fun peeking into their reimagined lives here, but beyond that, this is a great read for fans of experimental forms, fiction about literature, and poignant stories that make you feel something. Next, please. Moving to our crime imprint in June, we have Killingly by Catherine Buettner. This is historical, gothic mystery, and dark academia all wrapped up into one, with major queer overtones and true crime appeal. Set in 1897 New England at Mount Holyoke College, Killingly is inspired by the real-life unsolved disappearance of a student named Bertha Mellish. In the novel, Bertha is known as kind of the oddball, reserved girl, and she has a best friend named Agnes, a scholarly loner who dreams of being a doctor. These 2 young women have a deep bond where they've created a world of their own together, in a time in history when their dreams are considered pretty radical. At the beginning of the book, Bertha goes missing, and her family, their doctor, and a PI all arrive to search for her. To everyone's suspicion, Agnes, who seems like she would know the truth, is being very tight-lipped. So as everyone searches for Bertha, we glimpse into her life and relationships and find many unpredictable and shocking moments and surprises, including, spoiler alert, Agnes and Bertha are more than just friends. As it provides a historical portrait of academia, family trauma, and the risks faced by women who chose to take unconventional paths in the late 19th century, Killingly is an unforgettable literary mystery, perfect for fans of Donna Tartt and Sarah Waters. And Catherine Buettner will also be on the Book for Every Reader buzz coming up in a couple weeks. Next, please. In July, we have The Mistress of Bhatia House by Sujata Massey. This is book 4 in the Perveen Mystery series, set in 1920s India and featuring Bombay's only female lawyer. The series began with the Widows of Malabar Hill, which won the Mary Higgins Clark Award from the Edgars and several others. Every book in the series has gotten additional awards nominations and starred reviews. It's really a fan favorite. And it's perfect for fans of traditional mysteries, detailed historical fiction, and strong female-driven narratives. Our heroine, Perveen, is a sharp, compassionate, and lovable sleuth who remains a fan favorite in this novel. In this novel, she tackles a case that is deeply relevant today as it touches on women's reproductive rights. The inciting incident happens when Perveen is attending a lavish fundraiser for a new women's hospital, and an influential young man catches fire, and his servant, Sunanda, puts herself in harm's way to save him. But unfortunately, the thanks she gets is being thrown in jail on suspicious accusations, and Perveen sets out to do everything she can to seek justice and safety for Sunanda. This is an intelligently plotted, affecting mystery that centers women's rights. Hand this to fans of Maisie Dobbs and Alexander McCall Smith. Next, please. Finally, a quick preview of our biggest book of the year coming out in September, The Secret Hours by Mick Herron. This is a standalone spy thriller about a disastrous MI5 mission in Cold War Berlin in the 90s. Anyone new to Mick Herron is in for a treat with a sharp and humorous political thriller that will make you think and laugh out loud. Anyone who is already a fan of Mick's Slough House novels, which were just adapted into a TV series called Slow Horses from Apple TV+, this is a must read. It's a standalone, but you'll find some exciting reveals about favorite Slough House characters in this story. And last slide, That's all I have for you today. Please feel free to write me with any questions or request these titles on NetGalley and Edelweiss. Thanks, everyone.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Amanda Cromarco with Macmillan's Library Marketing Department. Here's all the ways you can get in touch with us, and we love hearing from you. So please reach out with any questions, concerns, or requests. On the next slide, you'll find instructions on how to download our e-galleys. So please reach out if you want to be whitelisted. And next slide, Happy Half Hour is our weekly book talking series that happens every Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern, where we highlight upcoming adult and YA titles. So definitely check it out for even more books and shenanigans. And now on to the books. First up is No Two Person. This is the next book from the best-selling author of Reese's Book Club pick, The Scent Keeper. It's about an author finally able to write her debut after a devastating event gives her the emotional connection that she needed. Then the book follows her readers, from a teenager hiding her homelessness, an artist furious at the world around her, a widower ridden by grief, and more. And now each of them discovers something different and is changed by their reading experience. This is a truly unique and beautiful love letter to reading and to books, and reveals how books affect us in the most touching and unexpected ways. Next is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros, and I am obsessed with this book. It is about a young woman drafted into a brutal and elite war college for dragon riders, where the only way to get out is to graduate or die. She'll have to vie for her place against her fellow students, while outside the school, the war grows even more deadly. With great fantasy elements, spicy romance, political intrigue, and an epic twist to set up the rest of the series, this was just so much fun to read. And I would give this one to fans of Sarah J. Maas and Jennifer L. Armentrout. Next is Sing Her Down by Abby Pacoda, the critically acclaimed author of Wonder Valley, Visitation Street, and These Women returns with a gritty feminist Western thriller. Two women who meet in prison, and when they get out, they fall into an epic cat and mouse game. Very No Country for Old Men meets Killing Eve. It's a fast-paced story with thought-provoking questions at its core about rage and violence and the confines of the roles assigned to women, making it book club catnip. Next is Mayfly by C.J. Lead. This debut is great for fans of You and My Heart is a Chainsaw. A young woman who takes on a new persona to impress her best friend's brother, but it's a persona inspired by American Psycho. The voice is sharp and commercial, it's campy and thrilling, and full of nods and sins up to the very horror canon that it's trying to rewrite. Next is The First Bright Thing by J.R. Dawson. This is a spellbinding debut for fans of The Night Circus and The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. An enchanted circus and the misfits and outcasts that make up its troupe must fight against an impending war and a rival circus determined to take them down. It's a moving story of found family and an exploration of who we are, who we love, and who we choose to be, all against a backdrop like Water for Elephants or Life After Life. Next is Night Will Find You by Julia Haberlin, the best-selling author of We Are All the Same in the Dark and Black-Eyed Susans returns with the story of a reluctant psychic who is brought in to find a girl who went missing long ago. The psychic twist really drew me in, and the compelling characters and deeper exploration of the delicate dance between scientific truth and the things we can't explain really kept me hooked. Next is The Guest Room by Tasha Silva. Y'all are never gonna want to stay in an Airbnb again after reading this book. When a young woman is forced to rent out her late sister's old room to pay the bills, the urge to rummage through her guest's belongings overtakes her every thought. As she's looking through her current guest's stuff, she finds a diary that chronicles his infatuation with a beautiful stranger. And while it appears harmless at first, it slowly takes a darker, more menacing tone with each new entry, and she can't help but notice the similarities between the woman on the pages and herself, leading her to wonder who has truly been watching whom. Give this debut to fans of You by Carolyn Kepnes and The Woman in the Window. Next is King of the Armadillos by Wendy Chin Tanner. This debut is set in the 1950s and follows Victor Chen, who is diagnosed with leprosy at 15 years old and is forced to leave his home and quarantine alongside other patients at a federal institute in Louisiana. There, in the company of an unforgettable cast of characters, Victor finds refuge in music and experiences first love, jealousy, betrayal, and even tragedy. The author's father was a patient at a real-life institute, the institute this is based on. So this is an authentic and captivating look at a forgotten radical community and a lyrical exploration of the power of art. And finally, The Connollys of County Down. The author of We Are the Brennans returns with a new story about fierce family loyalty, good intentions gone awry, and the consequences of improbable love. Here we meet Tara Connolly, who was just released from 18 months in prison and has to rebuild her life, find a new career, and hold together her entire family as secrets start to unravel and threaten her future. It is the perfect read for book clubs as it explores the possibility of beginning our lives anew and reveals the pitfalls of shielding each other from the bitter truth. And we'll be perfect for fans of Lori Frankel, Emma Straub, and Catherine Center. And next slide, that is it from me. Thank you again, everyone. This is our info, and please feel free to reach out. And now I'll hand it over to IPG. Thanks again.
Thanks, Amanda. Hi, this is Sharon Schell, and I'm with IPG, Independent Publishers Group. We are a distributor of lots and lots of great publishers. So I just want to jump in and get started. Thanks for being here, everybody, and listening. Next slide. Our first title is called Stifled Laughter, One Woman's Story About Fighting Censorship, and it's by Claudia Johnson. And she is a Pulitzer Prize nominated winner of the 1993 Penn Newman's Own First Amendment Award, and she was awarded by Paul Newman himself for her extraordinary efforts to restore banned literary classics from Florida classrooms. It's part memoir, part courtroom drama, and part primer for advocates fighting assaults on free speech. Stifled Laughter is the story of one woman's attempts and efforts to restore literary classics to the classrooms of rural North Florida. It's updated with a new introduction. This is a revised version, and Johnson's honest, often really hilarious first-person account of censorship in its modern form provides valuable insight into why books children read at schools remains a controversial issue, and why free speech in America remains a precarious right. This book is coming out right now, and it is so timely. So that's why I wanted to definitely present it to you guys today. And it's at a time when book banning has just reached new heights. Parents, teachers, writers, and readers will all benefit from Johnson's experience and be touched by her spirit and her courage. This is a great tool for librarians, teachers, and anyone that's worried about ongoing censorship in the book world. So as I mentioned, this is coming out from Fulcrum Publishing, and it's coming out like right now. Next slide. Just some great quotes that are going along with this title as well. Next slide. And the next title is called God is Red, A Native View of Religion. This is the third edition. It's by Vine Deloria Jr. This one's also by Fulcrum Publishing, and it's coming out in June. God is Red is the foremost book on Native American religion and philosophy, and Vine Deloria was one of the most acclaimed and respected Native American writers. This is the 50th anniversary revised edition, and it was first published in 1972. Vine Deloria Jr.'s God is Red 50th anniversary edition really remains the seminal work on Native religious views, asking new questions about our species and our ultimate fate. Next slide. And the next title is called A Short History of the World in 50 Lies. This is a top shelf IPG title, as was the one before that. And this one's published by Michael Amara, and it's coming out in June. This is part of a great series called A Short History of the World. This is taking readers on a global journey through human history. Historian Natasha Tidd examines how lies can change the world around us. From Julius Caesar's deceptive PR machine to the cover-ups that caused Chernobyl. Alongside these are examinations on how our retellings of history can turn fiction into fact. It's the 50 greatest lies that have defined us. It's an in-depth and highly revelatory look at the deceit and lies that have been peddled as truths and their impact on our history. Looking around the world and throughout time, this book shines fascinating new light on how history is written and reported. And it's written by a historian who is really passionate about making history lively and accessible for everyone. Next slide. The next title is called Beach Eats, Favorite Surfside Recipes for Every Occasion, and it's by the editors of Coastal Living. There's some really beautiful, beautiful cookbooks. And this one's coming out in May, and it is truly an anticipated reader-requested follow-up to the successful Coastal Living cookbook of 2004. and it is an IPG top shelf title for the season. This is a must-have for every beach house kitchen, the ideal gift for any beach house host. It's got loads of great photos and decorating features that show you how to set up a perfect table and incorporate beach finds and collections into your setup. This is a stunning cookbook that's reflecting also the locales that people gather at to share a drink, a meal, or something a little sweet by the shore. Next slide. Some great pictures there. And next slide. Our last title is called Southern Cocktails, Storied Sips, Snacks, and Barkeep Tips, also by the editors of Southern Living, another IPG top shelf title. And it really raises a glass to the South, page after page, in Southern Living's homage to quenching craft cocktails, born of the crusty characters, storied places, and the historic watering holes of the country's most spirited region. Has over 125 recipes for garnishes and mixers, storied Southern sips, classic and craft cocktails, pitchers and punch bowls, mocktails, and tasty bar snacks. Next slide. Some great photos. Again, a terrific looking cookbook. And the next slide. Any questions you might have, we've got lots and lots of catalogs on our website, ARCs and DRCs available on Edelweiss and NetGalley, and feel free to reach out to me for any questions, and I'll drop some links in the chat for you guys. So thanks so much for listening in and paying attention, and yeah, stay warm out there. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. My name is Pamela Osti, and I'm with HTP Books or Harlequin Trade Publishing. I'm a marketing manager at HTP. So over to the next slide. I wanted to start off with a super quick reminder of titles with an April 1st Library Reads voting deadline. First up, Cassandra in Reverse is a novel for fans of the Rosie Project, and it's about a neurodivergent woman who is forced to relive the same 24 hours over and over again. So think the movie Groundhog Day. And then we have children's author J.C. Cervantes, who makes her adult debut with The Enchanted Hacienda, a magical story that's Alice Hoffman meets Encanto, but for grown-ups. And then we have An Island Princess Starts a Scandal. This is a lush sapphic love story, and the second book in Adriana Herrera's Las Leonas series, following a Caribbean heiress in Paris. And then finally, The Island Villa is the perfect escapist summer read for fans of Jenny Colgan and Mary Kay Andrews that can be best described as beach read meets Mamma Mia. So be sure to vote for your favorites by April 1st. Next slide. The Happiness Plan by Susan Mallory. So you might know Susan as the Library Reads Hall of Famer. This book is unforgettable. At its heart, it's the story of three best friends, the family you make for yourself, and the courage it takes to risk your heart. Heather impulsively reaches out to her birth father and is shocked when she grows close to him, his wife, and their two kids. But everything changes when Heather's stepmom's cancer comes back. Heather's one simple rule is never get attached to anyone, but for the first time, she's having a hard time walking out the door. Darcy seems to have it all: a high-powered job, adorable stepkids, a perfect life. Too bad her marriage is falling apart after her disastrous affair with a colleague. But when she discovers she might be pregnant, she's forced to choose between the life she always thought she wanted and a chance for a fresh start. And Tori has always been a bum magnet until she begins to see her best friend in a whole new light. But could risking their friendship for something more ruin everything? Like Susan's mega bestseller, The Boardwalk Bookshop, this book is emotionally resonant and powerful while still feeling like an escape. This is perfect for fans of Yelin Hildebrand, Robin Carr, and Susan Wiggs. Next slide, The Housekeepers by Alex Hay. I think the best way to describe this novel is Ocean's 8 meets Downton Abbey. The setting is the grandest house in Mayfair, a home that is packed with treasures and glitter, but this house has secrets. And one day, the respected housekeeper is dismissed from her position. Her career is destroyed, and she leaves in humiliation and disgrace. But Mrs. King is no ordinary housekeeper. She's a descendant of con artists and thieves, and she's not going to leave quietly. She's going to exact revenge on the house, and she's going to do it on the night of London's grandest ball. So while high society is gathering upstairs, Mrs. King is downstairs with a group of women robbing the house of every possession. But this is more than robbery. By the end of the night, Mrs. King is going to expose the secrets of this house to everyone. This is a juicy page-turning read. It's the Edwardian heist novel you didn't know you needed. It'll appeal to thriller readers, to upstairs, downstairs drama enthusiasts, to cozy mystery readers and historical fiction lovers, and of course to blockbuster and book club readers of The Maid and the Lost Apothecary, books with a feminist edge with a great sense of revenge and just desserts. On the next slide, Women of the Post by Hoshunda Sanders. This is an emotional, action-packed World War II narrative that stars a group of women serving in an all-Black battalion of the Women's Army Corps. They find purpose, solidarity, and lifelong friendships as they work together to sort over 1 million pieces of mail from the home front to American soldiers. Hoshunda did extensive research on the real women who served in this battalion, reading journals and letter correspondence to better understand the obstacles they faced and the reasons why they joined the war effort. The result is a braided story of 3 women who feel so real and relatable as they navigate serving in a segregated army. Hoshunda also highlights the Bronx slave market, a place where white women would hire Black women to clean their homes for mere pennies. Until now, the Bronx slave market has never been written about in fiction. This is perfect for any reader of World War II fiction, for fans of A League of Their Own or Hidden Figures, and readers who are interested in the history of women shattering glass ceilings and taking up space in otherwise white, straight male-dominated environments, such as the US military. And then finally on the last slide, The Keeper of Hidden Books by Madeline Martin. It's 1939 in Warsaw, and nothing could prepare Marta and Janina for the Nazi occupation of their homes and families. While Marta and her father become active in the underground and work to salvage books in danger of being destroyed, Janina aids a secret library in the ghetto, lending and delivering books to orphans. As the roundups and executions intensify, these books become a life preserver for members of their community. While the characters in this novel are fictional, the story is based on the clandestine libraries in the ghettos and secret book lending practices in Warsaw during World War II. This is a fresh and unknown facet of World War II history that hasn't been seen before in fiction. Readers who love The Little Paris Bookshop, The Lost Girls of Paris, and The Lilac Girls will adore this novel. And then over to the last slide, that's it for me. My contact information is here. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at HQ for Libraries, and feel free to reach out for galley requests. And now over to Melissa.
Hello, I'm Melissa from Hachette Book Group, and I'm delighted to be the caboose. And thanks to Emily and Lainey for organizing again, but also sorry for not turning off my camera fast enough at the beginning. Lo siento. Next slide. Okay, we're going to get into fiction here, but I want to start out with a highlight from our spring 2023 publishing list. It's from the one-of-a-kind Luis Alberto Urrea. Got a starred PW review, and it's a favorite. Everyone around the office is reading and loving and crying. And Luis turns his magical gift to his mother's story and her World War II service. So here's the thing. Please make time to read and vote for library reads. I mean, please, I think, or else they might use a murder plot from Patterson book to like do me in. So vote. Thank you. Next slide. Before she finds me, in the spirit of Lucy Foley or Lisa Jewell, this is a domestic suspense with crossover appeal, races through twists of motherhood and love and betrayal, wealth and secrets at a breakneck pace. Heather will be on the thriller panel at LJ's Day of Dialogue. So, you know, I'll see you there. That's a free event. Also starred review. Loving it all. Next slide, please. Goodbye, Earl. And my first, but not only nod to Pi Day, this cover, I love it. Lisa brings music alive in her books. If you haven't read them and you're like into music, you just, there's just a soundtrack going. So after this presentation, listen to the Dixie Chick song right away. And this novel delves into recovery after abusive relationships, the importance of community. It's uplifting yet nuanced novel with the delicious dual revenge arc that delivers with a bite. Okay, that's Pi Day Part 1. Next slide. Forget Me Not. Listen, what happens when you're a wedding planner and you just landed the wedding of the year and you must work with a hot florist, and the hot florist is also your ex? Like, oh snap, I don't know. Anyway, Julie, the author, is a friend and a part of the same writing group as Allie Hazelwood, and her fanfic has driven TikTok wild. So Julie is going to join Annie and me, as well as a few other cool colleagues next month for our Hachette preview. So please register. We're going to have a lot of fun. Info's on the last slide. Next slide. Sun House. All right. David Duncan is an activist. He's a major environmental figure who has devoted his life to undamming rivers and restoring habitats. Bless his heart. He's got, a lot of work to do. And his stunning new novel, which he's worked on for 20 years, and our chief executive officer is editing it, illuminates the contemporary American West through the prisms of Eastern wisdom and the unpredictable, expansive yearnings of the human heart. It's a big, chunky book, worth the effort. Next slide. Over to nonfiction. My friend Anne Frank is a long-awaited memoir from Hannah Pink Gosler, who shares the story of her childhood during the Holocaust. And Hannah chronicles her own life during and after the war, and she provides a searing look at what countless children endured at the hands of the Nazi regime, as well as an intimate, never-before-seen portrait of the most recognizable victim of the Holocaust. Next slide. What does it take to grow up cool and popular and totally get adulthood right, fast track your success, always be your best? Well, our author would know. Her wildly relatable coming-of-age stories include moving home post-college and proving herself in the early 90s at New York's coolest magazine by being the worst intern. She's fallen for lots of get-rich-quick schemes on the internet. And she's saying tough titties to all the things you're supposed to do in life. Drive a car, be on time, hand in your paperwork, roast a chicken, have kids. We're excited about this. Yay. Next slide. Global humanitarian Eddie Nadobo was born with spinal muscular atrophy. He was told he wouldn't live beyond age 5, and yet he's thrived. He grew up loving pop music and reruns of The Bold and the Beautiful, and he was the only wheelchair user at his school, where he also flourished. So he later began traveling to speak to audience about disability justice. His memoir is primed with razor-sharp narrative. It's his remarkable journey to resist being sidelined by ableism and open the door for inclusion for others. Written with his one good finger, this is a clarion call to disabled achievers and other underdogs everywhere to stop climbing mountains and move them instead. And Eddie came to the office. We had a lot of fun one day. Next slide, please. Is Math Real? Is a liberating book about mathematics for people who ask questions. And it will dazzle us by showing how seemingly silly questions like, why does 1 + 1 = 2? Why do we multiply before we add? It's going to answer a lot of profound questions that mathematicians can ask. Okay, next slide. Yes, back to pie. So Stacy grew up in Singapore and Hong Kong, watching movies set in the United States and dreaming about taking a road trip from coast to coast, stopping at diners along the way. After college in Savannah and a decade as a fashion designer, Stacy turned her passion to home baking into an ode for her chosen home. And so in this book, she's honoring each state with a pie. Cute, right? Love it. Next slide. Upcoming new notable books from new names and best-selling authors, and maybe, in Kwame's case, a best-selling author writing for a new adult audience for the first time. Next slide. All right, thanks for listening. Contact info's here. Many of these titles are available for digital reading. Some are available in the printed form. Register for our virtual event. And I appreciate your time. Read, 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 vote. Don't let me get killed. Bye.
Thank you so much, Melissa, and thank you to everyone who presented today. Thank you, librarians, for joining us. If you're on the East Coast, thanks for joining us in the snow. And I hope you have a good rest of the day. We'll put this up on the ALMA YouTube channel soon, and I put a list of books in the chat. Have a good day. Goodbye.